Shri Shri Radha Ramanju ki Jai Jai Shri Radhe Shri. Mahalo. So nice to be here amongst you all. I want to offer my deep obeisance again and again unto my worshipful Guru Pad Padma Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, to Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to our entire spiritual lineage, especially here to Sripad Kedar Prabhuji, such a beautiful, beautiful Sangha, community of vibrant, effulgent souls. We're all in that process of waking up. We call it the blossoming of divine consciousness. The blossoming of divine consciousness. What is that blossoming? When a flower blossoms, why is it blossoming? It's blossoming because of love. Prem, this is called prem, divine love. So the blossoming of divine consciousness is the process by which that innermost essence in all our beings, the soul, the self, the Atman, awakens into divine love in relationship with the absolute truth. That is Sri Sri Radharaman. They are very merciful. They appear in many forms. In many forms. I lived in India for 16 years, but actually I first went to India when I was 9. When I met my guru, he came first to California in our community there, and then I went there with my father. And so I've been recently traveling, and I tell people, it's the longest I've been away from India since I was 9 years old. So it's very sad for me, but I'm taking it as my duty and my service to my guru. When I was 10 years old, he asked me to be a monk and serve his mission. And he would repeatedly ask me like that when he would see me. So I spent 15, 16 years there continuously. And if there's one thing I took away from that experience, you go through a lot of changes in 15 years in a certain kind of spiritual journey. Because life of a monk, it's a life for introspection and for service. Sadhana, that's called our practice. And it's a time for service. So if there's anything I could take away, many things are there. But one of those things is that ultimately, spiritually, we're all part of one family. This is not some kind of cheap words, kumbaya. That has to be realized from a deep sense of, trial by fire, you could say. Our Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Golden Avatar, he gave a very beautiful verse about spiritual life. He talked about 7 stages of spiritual life. And he said these 7 stages of spiritual life are all the glories of the chanting of God's names, what we are doing tonight, Kirtan. So each of these 7 stages is you could say, an ornament that decorates and glorifies this, what we call chanting together, Kirtan. People say chanting is like an outdated term, chanting. Chanting is a very beautiful term. It's about a deep, rhythmic, the resonance coming from our collective hearts and calling out. So this is that as our teachers tell us, that is the unifying principle and the highest spiritual practice in this age, that collective calling and chanting out in Kirtan. So our Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, in spiritual life, we're trying to find our true identity, who we are truly. Cheto dharpana marjanam. Therefore, any of those things that are, you could say, misidentifications, need to be gradually cleansed. Once we go through that stage of a spiritual process, we come to the next stage, which is called extinguishing the fire of material existence, what we call samsara. That's a very arduous process. It's not something that we can just talk about. It's something that we must go through. The nice thing is that as soon as we start going through that, and we all go through that in different ways individually, trial by fire, so many ways. The good thing is, the next 5 are all very blissful. Those are the first 2 stages. Trying to figure out who I am, and therefore I have to kind of burn away all that I am not. That's part of the yogic practice called yam and niyam, right? What we adopt and what we give up. Giving up is a hard thing to do. But it's like spiritual life is a long journey. If we're carrying, we start the journey with so many bags. After a while we realize I have to go so far, let me leave this bag aside. And I have to go so far, maybe I should leave this bag aside. I still have such a long way to go, maybe I have to leave this aside. In our spiritual journey, we have to cross beyond this earth dimension as well. Then there's a higher dimension, and in a higher dimension. The Kundalini process is in the micro, but it's also in the macro in our journey. So many things have to be given up. But the great thing is, by this process of coming together and chanting, doing kirtan, that energizes all the other activities that are beneficial in our spiritual life. It activates them. So our meditation practice, our different yoga practices, by this kirtan together, and especially what we're going to take after a few minutes, the prasad, these things together, they give a very powerful, you could say, spiritual diet, medicine, and protein. Gives us the strength to continue on our path. So there's so many stages, but in essence, once we get past these 2 first stages, figuring out who we truly are, giving up what we are not, and going through that forest fire of, confusion to realize who we truly are, then immediately Shreya Kairava Chandrika, our lotus of good fortune, begins to blossom. And then all divine knowledge begins to enter within us automatically. If we seek knowledge for its own sake, we'll not find it. But if we follow this spiritual practice, that will automatically be realized. So we follow, our practice is one of love and devotion. Otherwise, sometimes we seek knowledge and we become proud and we forget something I always learned from my teachers. The real fruit of learning is humility. It's something we can all try to remember. The real fruit of learning is humility. And so humility comes from a deep sense of devotion and surrender and love. When we start to follow this process, and we chant and we do our practice together, then what happens is we start to taste bliss. Anandam buddhi vardhanam. It's like we dive into an ocean of nectar. And therefore our scriptures say that we are children of nectar, immortal life and immortal bliss. And we are simply trying to awaken into that. Therefore, all that we are giving up is part of the dream. And we may be clinging on to it. But unless we give up attachment to the dream, we cannot wake up. So sometimes something has to be given up to get something better. Something has to be given up to get something better. But we shouldn't cry about that. It's said in spiritual life, Uttishtata Jagrata. Get up. Wake up. You want to achieve the highest thing, then you must be courageous. If you read the first lessons of Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, don't be a coward. Get up. Fight the good fight. So at every moment we start to enter into that ocean of bliss. It said, Pade Pade, at every step we taste ecstasy. So we are going towards that path. And yet, what is the roadblock? What is the obstacle? What is the speed bump? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Kaharena Koroninda, Krishna Krishna Bole. Don't condemn, judge, or criticize anyone. Everyone is on their path. Everyone is on their own path. If we spend our life collecting hate, malice towards others, no matter who they are, how they are doing, everyone's on their spiritual journey, Our Christ said, hate the sin, not the sinner. And we say even that you should turn aside from. When I travel, I say our duty in life, we're not expecting to be able to rid the world of all its darkness. Simply we serve the light. Try to put our little effort of service into the torchlight of those, you could say, places that are embodiments of love and acceptance of all, like this Temple of Peace. Serve this place. Then this place is like a glowing orb of divine love. And the more you stay in that presence, the more you yourself become that orb of divine love. So much so that wherever you go, you can carry that light. And whoever comes in touch with you can be enlightened. Otherwise, this is bad, and that is bad, and this is bad, and they are bad, and they are bad. Darkness will come inside us, and then we will be bad. And then people will say, alas, they had such good prospects, but they have become tainted by darkness. So we pray and we hope to remain always aloof and separate from judging and looking down upon others. The great remedy in this age of quarrel and darkness and hypocrisy is this coming together in chanting and doing this kirtan, but without judgment. Mahaprabhu said, oh brothers, oh sisters, we are all one spiritual family. That's what I took away. Through a lot of meditation, a lot of practicing. It sounds like a cheap thing, but it's what I believe is called, it's a controversial topic, but pure sectarianism means there is no other sect. There's only God and all living entities, all souls are in the family of God. Vasudeva Kutumbakam. So people say, oh, because we have our temple in New York, we have a 60-acre ashram, and our deities are called Sri Radha Raman. Very beautiful, also Prabhuji pictures. So people say, oh, you're very non-sectarian to me. I said, no, I'm not. I'm pure sectarian. Because there is no other sect. We're all God's children. Anyone can argue? Sastra says, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Mamaya Vangsa Jiva Loke, every being, from the ant to the tree, to the elephant, to the man, to the dog, to the woman, they're all my eternal parts and parcels. So you are seeing difference because you are in illusion. When you come into higher spiritual knowledge, you will see that everyone is in that same family of God. Therefore, we are all one spiritual family. In a family, we're all struggling to different degrees, but we have a great hope, a great aspiration, a great destiny, a great thing waiting for us to be discovered. So therefore, we all worry about our individual process and try to develop more and more magnanimity towards yourself and towards others. Our Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is the incarnation of compassion and magnanimity. He was so broad-minded, he said everyone. He embraced in the jungle lions and deer and elephants and trees, and they all began to dance in ecstasy. He didn't think, oh, you are lesser, you are higher. So this is an important principle for us that we could say, this could solve many problems in the world today. Try to be a servant of the light. If you want the darkness to go out of a room, turn on the light. Don't fight darkness with darkness. Turn on the light. That's an internal switch. But sometimes we can't turn the switch on, so go to holy people. Come here to the Temple of Peace and ask Kedar Prabhu, please help me turn on the switch. He'll tell you, okay, do this, and then do this, and do this. There's some levers, and then boom. Boom. Wow. They're bright, like a shining lamp. So we have this mood, while at the same time, in that beautiful family of the Lord, there's a great opportunity to develop relationship. And if we were to examine ourselves and try to go deep into what are our core values and longings, relationship is integral. And so we also have that relationship waiting for us to be established with personality of Godhead. Like we have personality, God has personality. And He has features. He said, you can approach me as you like. You can approach me as the universal spirit. You can approach me as God, as that spiritual essence in the heart guiding you. You can also, if you're ready for a loving relationship with me, you can approach me like that. And I will reciprocate with you. Krishna makes us that promise. We should not limit God. Limit God to the limitless. No. God is also, as He is formless, as much He is as form. That is His choice. Don't limit God. God can be formless, but as He chooses, He can also choose form. But that is transcendental form. And He says, to develop relationship with me in a loving manner, come to me in my personal form, and I will show you my land. That land that we are all praying for and aspiring for. So I'm very honored to come here and see this beautiful, bright, shining manifestation of that divine love and light of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, embracing all faiths, all people. We can accept, this is an important part of understanding we're all one family. Family understands that there can be differences while still being family. It's something that always confuses me. As soon as anyone has a difference of opinion, they say, I can't spend time with you. It's very strange to me. I don't understand. What's the harm having affection towards every living entity as part and parcel of God? No matter how they are on their path, where they are, what is their mentality or not. Difference of opinion or not. All beings, we are part of that fabric of all being. And so why do we want to cut ourselves off from that fabric? And yet, our specific practice and path of bhakti is about loving relationship and establishing that through this process of chanting. And one more thing is very important. I'll end with this. There's a very beautiful verse, Sanskrit. Ata Shri Krishna namadina bhavet grahayam indriya sevan muk jivado swayameva spuratyada. We're all here chanting together, we take prasad together, but if you really want to make your spiritual life powerful and dynamic, you'll do one important thing: service, seva. Service is that thing that takes all the other things you do and gives it. It's like you have the car, you have the engine, you have the gas, you have the driver, but you forgot the spark plug. Service is that spark that makes the engine of spiritual life go. Wakes you up. So we come here, try to do a little bit of service. Service is an expression of appreciation. It is also, even more so, an expression of love. If you love someone, you serve them. Service is the active quality of love. So don't serve for reward. Serve because you love. Then it is called bhakti. Service in love is bhakti. Simple. So for us, our mission in New York is called, very simply, Serve Love. We have our website, servelove.com, we're developing, and our Sanskrit name is Bhakta Bandhav, which means a friend of everyone. And that's a name that was given to our Guru. He was truly a friend of everyone. There's an important verse that says, if you want to be a friend of everyone, first, you must be a dear friend of God. And that is the Sanskrit. Ashmakam bandhava bhakta bhaktanam bandhava vayam. The friend of everyone is first and foremost the best friend of God. So we direct our energy there, one-pointedly, and then we get so much energy we can share that love to all beings and all existence. And so I'm trying to serve that transcendental mission that is eternal with that Muda Vasudeva Kutumbakam, that we are all in that one spiritual family. So thank you for your time. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.